Hey everybody. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to share something with all of you. And I want to start off by saying that this is something that's really hard for me to share. So for those of you that I see regularly and have not shared this with yet, please accept my apology that you're finding out about this in a video. But it's something, like I said, it's something that's very hard for me to share. And it's something that I've already had to share a couple times with our board and our prayer team. And I would like to not have to share it a bunch of other times. So I figured a video is the best way to let everybody know what's going on, give everybody an update, and keep you in the loop. I also have some notes here on my computer that I may be referencing so that I can keep this concise and not go off on a whole spiel. So if I'm looking down at times, that's why. So just to give you a little bit of a backstory, there have been 3 times this year where Dylan and I have had counselors, mentors, people we trust recommend that I consider taking time away from the ministry because of all the stress it's caused, how the stress is impacting me, and because of the level of unprocessed grief that I have surrounding us leaving Guatemala, us staying here in the US when we didn't think that was what was going to happen, and my new role in the ministry. So the first 2 times that this happened, Dylan was not at a point where neither Dylan nor I don't think I still am quite at the point where we're ready for that to happen. I didn't even really want to consider it as a real possibility. And with everything else we were going through and the place Dylan was at, we just pushed it off to the side as not an option. However, I have noticed, and those closest to me have noticed, that over the past year, I have had a steady decline in my mental and physical well-being. The physical symptoms I've been trying to ignore, just hoping they'd go away. And the mental symptoms I have done a good job of ignoring because I was really shocked when I got the results of some tests. And those who are closest to me were not shocked at all. So, as far as my physical issues, I've been having elevated blood pressure. I've had increased stomach pain every time that I'm doing school and work with the counseling office and all the stuff in my personal life and things with the ministry. There have been times where I've had a break from school. So my physical symptoms haven't been as bad. So it seems like I can handle 3 out of those 4 things, but just all 4 of them has just it's gotten to a point where it's become too much. So I have also, in my last class, took some assessments, some mental health assessments, because we needed to assess ourselves and then write a paper about how we would treat ourselves if we were treating us as a client. So, as I mentioned, I was really shocked when the results of the assessments came back showing that I'm showing signs of severe depression, acute stress with stress levels that are so high and have been so high for so long that I'm at risk of developing PTSD in the future. And also, I'm having my quality of sleep is being impacted during the times that I am resting. So even when I am resting, I'm not resting well, which just adds to the problems with my physical health and my mental health. um, so back in November, Dylan and I started seeing a marriage counselor as a recommendation from when we went to the missionary debriefing in August. And sorry if you guys hear noise over here. My cat is trying to look out the window, so let me open the blinds for shoot day so he's not distracting us. But anyway, we started seeing a marriage counselor as a recommendation of the mentor we had at the marriage mentor that we had at the missionary debriefing in August. And when the first time we saw her, after hearing just a little bit of our story and where we were at and what was going on, she said to me, unless you want to destroy your marriage and your physical and mental health and end up completely burnt out, you need to take time away from something. And I thought she was completely rude. And I, as a counselor, was shocked and felt like I was never coming back to see her again. But as we processed things more, we realized that there was a lot of truth in what she was saying. And so the best I could, she wanted me to stop with the ministry right then and there. The best I could give her was that I would take time and pray about it. We would as a couple and see where God is leading us. And so this was all before I took the mental health assessments that I just told you about for my last class. As Dylan and I processed things and talked about this, we realized that due to all of the emotions that I have surrounding us leaving Guatemala and my change in the role in the ministry and all the stresses that have been going on with the ministry over the last several years, but particularly over this past year, that the ministry was the biggest stressor in my life right now. So as we prayed about it, we saw God guiding us to me taking time away from the ministry because Dylan is now at a place where he feels that he can handle that better. And also because recently God has motivated some people to volunteer and reach out and say that they want to help out with the ministry. So we have more people helping now. If I'm going to be 100% honest, this is a really hard decision for me to make. But what I've come to realize it as I've processed it with our counselor, my spiritual mentor, Dylan, and my closest friend, and with God through prayer, is that if I don't take this time, I'm going to be at a place in my physical and mental health where I don't have a choice to take this time away. And we would rather do it now where we can plan for it and do it in a more controlled way than do it in an emergency situation because something critical has happened to me and now we have to figure things out. We're also doing this because my levels of stress and where I've been with my mental health and the lack of time for things has impacted our marriage. And one of the things that, one of the biggest things that they drilled into our heads and our hearts when we were in missions training was to never sacrifice our family on the altar of ministry. And as we've looked back over this year and processed everything we've been through, all the problems with the effects of me having typhoid fever. So this wasn't just this year. This has been the last 4 years since God first told us we were coming back to the U.S. Believe it or not, it's been a 4-year process. So, all the stuff with my digestive issues from typhoid fever, and Dylan's brother died. We moved back to the U.S. We changed our church. We found out that we're staying in the U.S. permanently, or at least longer than we thought we were. We changed our sending organization. We had a bunch of stress this past year with starting our own 501c3, going to Guatemala to say goodbye to the families. And then while we were in Guatemala, Dylan's mom died. We have had the stress of some relational issues with a family member since Dylan's mom died. The long-term financial stress of the ministry not doing well. Then Dylan's aunt died, and then Dylan had to go back to Guatemala to fire one of our employees. And then just a few weeks ago, Dylan's stepdad died. So we've really had a lot that has been on us, and we're very thankful that our marriage is as strong as it is. Otherwise, with God, all things are possible, but it would have been a miracle of God. It is a miracle of God that our marriage has survived all of this, because it's been a really hard and stressful and just heavy, unbearable 4 years. But thankfully, we were able to process this together. And again, I'll be 100% honest. I have gotten to a point where I have so much on me and I have so much stress that I've been dealing with that spending time with my husband has just become one more thing on my to-do list. It had been that way. Thankfully, we've made some changes over the last several months and it's not that way anymore. But that was a horrible place for us to be. It was painful for both of us. And it was really sad for me to realize that I wasn't at a point where I could be the wife and partner that Dylan deserved, not just ministry partner, but just partner in living life together. So like I said, we had it drilled into us that we would not sacrifice our family on the altar of ministry, and also not sacrifice our mental or physical health on the altar of ministry. Not to say that there aren't difficulties that you have to go through when you're in ministry, just as when you're in life in general, but to be mindful and take the time that we need when we need it. So for all of these reasons, and most importantly, because it's what God has shown us, starting right about now, which is mid-January, I am taking a 4-month unpaid leave of absence from the ministry. It's a family medical leave of absence, and I will be on my leave of absence from the ministry until after I graduate from school in May. We have been in the process for the last several months of transitioning me out of the ministry duties that I have, and having meetings with our board and discussing how we're going to move forward, and all of that. So this is the timeline that was recommended by our marriage counselor and that we have all felt is a good time. So just to be clear, I'm not taking a sabbatical, so I'm not taking time away from everything. Um, a sabbatical requires the little bit that we know about sabbatical for it to be done the right way, requires a lot of planning and prep and guidance. And some people even have sabbatical coaches to make sure they're doing everything they need to be. And that's just not something that we're at a place for right now. So that's why we have decided that an unpaid leave of absence is the best route to go. So during this time away from the ministry, I'm going to be focusing on having some appointments for my physical health issues that I have put off because I haven't had the time to do them. I'm going to be getting back into doing my own personal counseling, which I had stopped doing in the spring of last year because I had things coming up that were coming up from my childhood, and I was seeing children at the time, and my supervisor started seeing a trauma response coming out in me. And so she recommended that I stop my personal counseling work until I was through internship, because I wasn't at a place where I could reduce my counseling hours or change my caseload or anything like that and still accomplish internship. So I'm going to be getting back into that, and I'm going to be focusing on more time with my husband, just being a wife and a friend and just enjoying life together rather than just so much focus being on being a ministry partner and what do we have to do for the ministry and all of those things, which is what our relationship, the majority of our relationship had become. And most importantly, I'm going to be spending extra time with the Lord, processing the huge binder of stuff that they gave us when we went to the missionary debriefing that I have not had time to work through, and that Dylan has, and he is at a much better place than I am right now. So I'm hoping that when I get to the end of this, I'm going to be at a better place too. But also there is some grief work that I'm going to be doing, some specific work on a grieving process that I'm going to be focusing on and working on during this time. So all of that stuff is what I'll be doing during these 4 months. And I do just want to be clear that during this time, we are really going to be seeking the Lord as far as what it looks like when I transition back into the ministry. And so I want to say, I truly believe that in May, I will be coming back to the ministry. I just don't know what that looks like, what God has for me in that, and what he's going to show us through these next 4 months. So I wanted to put that out there and be clear up front, just so that if May comes and things look a lot different than they did before, nobody is surprised by that. So in May, I just want to be prepared to take the next steps that God has for me, whatever that looks like, so that I can give him the best yes, and that I can give the best of me to whatever he has for me. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and letting me share. We're going to be sending out another video soon that includes Dylan and I both. Just follow up, giving a few more details and answering some questions that have been really good questions that people have had and that have come up through this process. But I didn't want to make this video too long. So we're going to do that in a separate video. But I wanted to let you all know this as soon as possible, since we are in mid-January and my leave of absence is starting now, because we want to be, as we always have strived to be, as transparent as possible with everybody. And also I wanted to share it with all of you as soon as possible, so that you all can be praying for us during this time. So thank you for all of your continued love and your encouragement, your care, your prayers, and your support of us as we've journeyed through this over the last several years. I and we appreciate all of you so much, and we appreciate your prayers, and I look forward to updating you more in the next video and in the next few months once we see what God has during all of this. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.